Hello, this is Sean with Surviving Networking and IT, and today's topic something pretty personal to me. Something I've been through several times, and it's not really talking about within our industry, at least publicly on YouTube or in YouTube in general that I've seen. And that's how to handle being written up from. While this shouldn't happen all the time, it does happen to people that are in the wrong place at the wrong time or don't realize what they're doing at times. And I want to go over this of what a person can do throughout the whole process. And what now? So, what is a work write-up? PIP, corrective action plan, performance management plan. By definition, as told by the internet from Indeed, a corrective action plan, or CAP, is a document to accomplish targeted outcomes for resolution of undesirable actions. These record what participating parties should do to correct the undesirable action, business use of correction action plans when an identified problem has a potential to affect the company's quality of management system negatively. In short, they think you messed up and they need you to do something about it. Now, there are two types of write-ups. There's performance related, which performance can vary depending on the organization, from tardiness to metrics to job specific issues, to non-performance related issues such as attitude. A lot of things tie back to attitude. The culture issue, which attitude can tie into that. Tardiness can float between performance and non-performance. Insubordination, that's a big one. Your boss says to do something and you don't do it. Technically, that's insubordination. And it's up to you to decide whether insubordination is justified, but insubordination can put you at risk. Be careful. And my favorite, sleeping on the clock. What about my story? What has been my history with write-ups? I've been through several write-ups throughout my time. I won't list specific companies, but I've learned something from each individual write-up. And hopefully this will give you a little bit of background about myself of what I've done and where I'm going. So in company one, I was assigned to work in a warehouse to format 500 computers. They were being disposed of and it needed to be computers wiped before they could be sold to a wholesaler. And in this warehouse, it was dead silent. No fans, no air conditioning. And it was springtime, I think 1999. And it was boring, like dead boring, of just formatting one computer after another. I had 2 monitors, 2 keyboards, 2 USB sticks, and I had to go through this whole warehouse. And I found a TV laying in the corner. I decided to turn on to listen to something while I was formatting PCs. During this time, one of the weeks, someone walked in, saw me watching TV, or what they thought I was watching TV, and they reported it to my leadership. They said he was watching TV and not doing his work. And unfortunately, because I was by myself 95% of the time, there was no one else to back my side of the story. In essence, I got written up for listening to a TV while formatting a bunch of computers in a warehouse. Lesson from that I learned is perception means a lot. Even though I may not actually have been watching TV, the perception that I was made it seem like I was slacking off. Company 2, salespersons either love IT or hate IT, simple as. And if they hate IT, they usually give IT attitude, especially if you're low level. And in Company 2 organization, they were very sales driven, and the salespeople would often go against best practice, and I would re-explain to them the best practice for this is to do X, Y, and Z, and they'd give me attitude about it. And in short, after a certain amount of time, I'd clap back. I'd give that same attitude right back at them, and they didn't like that. They reported back to their manager and whatnot, and they decided to talk to my manager about it after 3 incidents. Even though there were 3 incidents that was never got back to my manager, it was just 3 incidents from a salesperson, and they decided to write me up for that. And what I learned from that is, in organizations that are sales driven, salespersons are treated with kid gloves. You need to be aware of that, of how salespersons are treated and what the kind of relationship the sales team has with IT. If it's a sour relationship between sales and IT, walk on eggshells or walk very gently. Hold their hands. If they have a great relationship, hopefully they won't give you any attitude. Hopefully it won't be two heads butting. But it's something to be aware of. Tardiness. Another company I worked for said if you're late more than 4 minutes before your after your clock in time, they said that you were tardy and they would dock you pay for, I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes, something like that. And it'd be a common time where I'd be late for 6 minutes because of traffic or some other benign instance. And at the time I was working help desk, and so they needed me be on the phones at whatever 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on the dot. I get it. They have commitments they have to keep. But if you were late more than 3 times in a given month, they would give you a verbal warning, and then the next incident after that, within the next 30 or 60 days, it would be a written warning. And then it would escalate from there as needed. And that happened to me. I was having a rough month, late 4 times in a month, and they wrote me up. Learned from that some organizations pride themselves on having everybody where they need to be on time all the time. Company 4. One of my personal favorite situations is I fell asleep at my desk. This was back in, I think, early 2010. My son was just recently born. I was in school full time. I was working full time, and I was burning the candle on both ends. And that's on me. I should not have been splitting my time like that. During the day, I was going to school between, I think it was 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. to like 4 p.m. And then from 4 p.m., I'd go home, get an hour or two of sleep, take care of my son before my wife went to work. And then after my wife got back from work, I would go ahead and then go to work from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'd do 10-hour shifts. And around 4 a.m., I'd get really tired. And overnight, working help desk, for the most part, got no calls whatsoever. A few emails here and there. And whenever an email would come in, I would reply, do what I need to do, and move on. But in phone calls, same thing. A call would come in, I would answer the call, help the person with their issue, and then move on. Well, one night I got tired, and I put my head in my hand like this. And I thought, I'm just going to rest my eyes for a few minutes. And then someone come over, tapping my shoulder to say, hey man, you're snoring. So I learned then that if you do fall asleep at work, hopefully you don't snore. Because snoring does attract attention to other people in the office. There was only a handful of people in the office. It must have happened at 6 a.m. when the early birds were getting into the office at the time. And I really learned that I can't burn the candle on both ends. I need to get a good, 6-7 hours of sleep every night. So situations like that don't come about. Company 5. This is probably the first of few situations where I got written up for performance related. And it was miswiring a power supply from a DC plant to an AC adapter or something like that, where I wasn't qualified to make these changes, but I was asked to by my boss anyways, because he was off doing something else. I explained to him, I said, I'm not really comfortable doing this, but I'll go ahead and try. And he gave me instructions. He said, go ahead and take your multimeter and test these certain things. I thought I did it correctly. and when I put things together, pop, and then the blue magic smoke starts to come out of a power supply, and that cost a couple $1,000s for some equipment. Some of the network at the time went down, and then they had to replace the equipment. And at that time, it was a rough time for the organization to have that happen, because their customers don't understand, and they just realize part of the service that they were paying for just went out. Luckily, that only affected maybe 100 customers for a few hours. However, that would cause such a headache that I was written up. Another one was a company that worked for that they deployed a new site. It was up and working fine. They had 2 internet providers and seemed to be working great. And then one morning, we get a call at 9 a.m. from site staff saying they can't log in. They're getting no connection, no internet connectivity. And come to discover, one of the ISPs went down in the area, and the other ISP wasn't working at all for some reason due to a fiber issue for weeks. And we didn't know because of network monitoring. Network monitoring wasn't in place. Now, it was my responsibility to put network monitoring in place. However, during this time, I was overworked, working 12 to 16-hour days between 5-6 days a week. And I explained to leadership, I need assistance. I can't be babysitting vendors on site while trying to do network design, while trying to do configurations. Other day-to-day things are going on. Something's going to get missed, and I'm doing my best of my ability to not miss anything. This one thing of not monitoring one ISP, in their eyes, thought that could be preventable, and I got written up for without network monitoring. How my managers handled my situations. A lot of them yelled. Some of them even threatened, said, hey, if you mess up again, you're fired. And that can be shocking. That can be heartbreaking. That can be a gut punch beyond belief. That sucks. Some handled it very calmly. They just laid out the facts and say, hey, you did X. We expected Y. You're going to be written up for this. You know better. A few of them, were also not only calm, but they offered suggestions. Say, we expected X, you need to do Y. This is how I would do to prevent this from happening again. And in those situations, I was appreciative of that. It was very, very few. A lot of them had a very hot temper when it come to those kind of write-ups. How could they have handled it differently? Coaching on how to handle the situations leading up to the incident of concern. So, such as my monitoring site issue. They could have bettered my eyes, could have provided me some additional assistance so I wouldn't have been so bogged down, so I could make sure I check all the boxes on every kind of site deployment. Or prevented or talked about how to manage the things leading up to the incident. Checking the ISPs, make sure they're working every few weeks, or checking on me to see how I am doing after my newborn son at the time. And in those situations, it's difficult. I understand both sides of the coin. I wish more managers would have been understanding that mistakes can happen. And it's from those mistakes that we learn, get better, and commit more to doing the job. Sometimes the job is hard. Flat out. And it's how we bounce back from these mistakes is where you see people really get their stride. How other managers have handled this. I talked about this in the Brothers Whist Slack a while ago. And I asked them, say, hey, how do you guys handle being written up? What are things that go on in other organizations? Some organizations, they implement a fun rule that you have to buy the whole team pizza. So I like that idea. That way it recognizes that there's an issue, that something gets fixed, and Hey, the penance for it is buying the team pizza. I really do like that idea. It doesn't beat someone down for making a mistake. Other organizations allow people to take ownership of the mistake and just move on. Own the mistake, fix it, move on. That is a great way for organizations to handle that. Some just use it as a teaching experience and they discuss with the team, saying, "Hey, Sean, discuss what happened in this scenario." Instead of getting it to a write-up, have a teaching mistake for the rest of the team, not to embarrass the person, but to help others. And I think that is a great way it can be handled. I've talked to a few managers over the years, and they've explained to me their thought process. Just one of three main things. Manager themselves wants you gone. Period. Wants you gone, and this is a formality to get you out. And it sucks. If you like the job and the manager doesn't like you, only a matter of time until you're gone. They will find a way to eliminate you. Another train of thought is they have no choice because HR got involved. HR gets involved because someone said, "Hey, it's harassment of some kind," and they have to write you up because of something else that got involved that wasn't performance related. I'm sorry, the manager's going to write you up. And it's a very difficult situation on all sides, but you should protect yourself. Talk about that more in a little bit. Third thought is that they're writing you up, wake you up, so you can get back on their team. They want to bring it to your attention in such a way that you can't ignore. So let's just say they've given you a verbal warning. Your actions that you've done before are still happening, even though they said, "Hey, this can't happen," and they've had one-on-one coachings with you, or they've done something else to bring it to your attention, and then this is the last hurrah saying, "Hey, we really, really need you to change what you're doing. Otherwise, this is going to lead up to you being terminated." Pay attention to what kind of thought process this is from the managers. How you can handle being written up. Even though it's not listed on here, I want to say take a deep breath. As it's been said before with other things in life, with time, this will pass. But take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Don't let the situation overwhelm yourself. Update your resume ASAP. If you haven't updated your resume monthly like you should, this time go back through what you've performed and what you've done and what you've learned and update your resume. Do not wait on this. If your manager is providing you feedback on what you can do to improve, look for the meaning behind the words. Sometimes they're just reading words to what's written on the write-up, but listen to how they're saying the words. Listen to what the actual meaning is. They may give you a clue to, "Hey, this is what you can actually do to fix it," or, "Hey, you have no hope of fixing it. This is just a warning, but I can't give you the warning." After that, take the next 1 to 2 days off from work to mentally recover. I've been there. It's a gut punch when you get written up. You think you're doing well, and then boom, so a mistake happens and you get written. If you can afford it, take a couple days off. When you come back, or the next day, or whenever you can, keep your head down. Anything that keeps you on the radar is a bad thing. So if you're a person that normally jokes around a lot, then you can make crass jokes. Stop making those crass jokes. If you're sarcastic, stop being sarcastic. Don't go out of your way to speak up. Answer questions pleasantly and politely, but keep your head down. If you need to prepare for a worst case scenario, if you feel like you're going to get fired or someone's told you're going to get fired, do not let the other shoe drop. What I mean by that is, The written warning was the first shoe. The other shoe dropping is you getting escorted out of the building. Update your resume if you haven't done so already. This should have already been done ages before, but go ahead and do so. Very important. Apply for other jobs or side gigs right away. Let it be you're driving for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash. Something to supplement your income can really, really help. If you can't afford to do that right now, apply for other jobs. Apply for jobs that are outside your range. Apply for stuff that's below your range. Just something that you can have on the docket to buy you some time. What you don't want to end up happening is that you suddenly get fired and you have no income coming in from your side. I've been there before. It sucks. Unemployment, it takes between 2 and 4 weeks to get your first check, which really, really sucks. You can't depend on unemployment, and when you go to apply to other jobs, they're going to ask you about why do you have a job gap, and that is something you don't want to have to go into deep discussions. Hey, I got fired for X, Y, and Z, or then you have to change your story. Say, hey, fired. I didn't agree with management on X, Y, and Z. That's a discussion for a later date for how to interview. But you want to have another gig already lined up or another job already lined up before you get fired. If you think you're going to get fired soon, reduce your expenses ASAP. Everything. Paying for anything monthly and you can cancel it, cancel it. Anything but internet. Keep your internet going, but maybe reduce it down. Like just say you were paying for gig, you really don't need for gig service. Drop it down to the cheapest that you think you can tolerate. So if you're eating out on a weekly basis, every single day you're eating out lunch. I've been guilty of that. Reduce that down and just make sandwiches at home. Soup, sandwiches, stuff that's cheap. You'd be surprised of how much money you can save by not spending $10, $15, $20 at lunch. If your workplace becomes toxic, means your boss is being a real butthead, or your coworkers are being trashy to you, document this and report it to HR ASAP as a hostile work environment. That's very important wording that you have to use there. Hostile work environment. And once you have documentation of this, including emails, text messages, file a report and get a physical copy of this report. This is important, so if for some reason they fire you after this, you can address this in litigation in regards to a improper termination as retaliatory or a whistleblower. Those kind of scenarios, you want to have documentation out the wazoo so you can protect yourself. Now let's say you do get fired, or hey, they told you tomorrow's your last day. Keep all the documentation of your write-up. Keep it handy in case you do need to litigate on grounds for legitimate reasons, such as racial profiling or some other protected status, such as talking about your work environment with your fellow coworkers. If you talk about your pay or how you work with your fellow coworkers, yes, it may seem taboo from employer side. However, that is protected. So just be aware that those kind of discussions can happen, and you want to keep documentation of all of that. If you quit, you find another job, and you're like, "Salavi, I'm out of here." Document the process of which you do so. Did you give any notice? Who'd you give a notice to? Were there any security or access changes that should have been done, such as password resets or whatnot? Once you have that documented, move on with your life. And not all organizations are meant for all people. Not all employees are meant for all organizations. Some places are better than others, and sometimes they're only good for a short amount of time. Make the best of the time you have. Um, I hope this helps someone somewhere. I know talking about being written up is not always a comfortable topic, but be comfortable in the whole process, or find a way to be comfortable in it so that it's not something that's going to disrupt your lifestyle in your world. This is Sean, signing off from Surviving Networking and IT. Till next time, thanks.